Good evening. It's time to call the caucus meeting of the Florence City Council to order. And we'll start with Mr. Hunt. He's our Director of Administration to report about a request from Drury. It's Resolution R24016A of the Boone County Planning Commission recommending approval with conditions for a concept development plan for an approximate 7-acre site located at 7915 US 42. It's currently zoned C3 PDPO. And Josh?
Yes, ma'am. So this is a pretty easy one. If I could turn your attention to the screen, everybody should know where this picture is. It's probably the only development within our municipal district that I can remember a crane being at. I know at Turfway they had a crane out there temporarily, but this is the crane's been out there for months and going to town. It's really kind of elevated the skyline. It's got a very big presence. But the request is very simple. There's just a few slides. The request is from Drury to subdivide a small portion of property which will be sold. So to get into it, the existing site now where Drury sits is about 7.0135 acres. And we'll talk a little bit about building intensity. The property is zoned C3 PD, so the commercial 3 is the underlying zone. The Central Florence Overlay District dictates the plan development aspect. That's the PD that's associated with the property. And anytime you're building a property, there's a building intensity that you have per acre. So for a C3 zone, it's 18,000 square feet per acre. And that tells you, based on how many acres you have, how big of a building that you can build. So with that 18,000 square foot number, that gives you a 126,000 square foot maximum building intensity that you can have on a C3 zone property. And that's important to note. The hotel under construction is 113,000 square feet. That's also important to note, as we'll get into the next slide and talk a little bit about building intensity and what that means. So with the subdivision of this plat, the green box that's 2.056 acres is what will be subdivided, and that will be marketed. There's no tenant or there's no end user at this point in time for that specific parcel, but that leaves a 4.9 acre roughly tract, which means that the building that's under construction, it exceeds what would be allowed there from a intensity point of view once it's done. However, there is a PD, a plan development, which is the Central Florence Overlay District. Anytime you have a plan development, there's a PD bonus when it comes to intensity. You can ask for a 50% intensity bonus. So with that, with subdividing this, some math here I wrote down. He is asking for, or Drury is asking for, a 27.195% building intensity bonus. All this really means is that there's a bonus that's been applied for through an overlay district. Drury is within the guidelines that the PD overlay district allows. So there's really no issue with what the request is. There would only be an issue if there was a request for intensity over 50%. So with that, the Boone County Planning Commission had recommended approval for this. There was 2 additional conditions that are associated with it, and you can't really tell it on the plan, so I'll kind of just go over it a little bit. There's some orange-ish looking lines going off each side of the building. The first condition is associated, those are additional sidewalks. It just basically states that the sidewalks have to be installed per their approved plan. The second condition deals with a gated access that could come through the rear of this lot. So this parcel will eventually develop out. That the 2 acres that's being subdivided, it'll more than likely have a curb cut access off of Industrial Road. If now, depending on what this end use is, if there is a potential connection point through here, there may be a gate. They went ahead and made the ask for it as part of the PD. That way, if it comes back up, it's already been talked about, and there's kind of some parameters for how they would get it. There's no, they didn't submit any kind of supplemental design or anything like that for what the gate will look like. It's basically just a placeholder, saying that if a gate's going to go in there in the future, the condition will allow it with the conditions that are set forth with the approval and finding of facts. So the Florence P&Z committee did meet. We went through this in depth. Didn't really see the need to modify or add any additional conditions, and we're okay with the project. So that is, like I said, it was a pretty simple one. It's just really subdividing a few acres. And we will, if this is approved, the economic development team will aggressively look towards getting, we're actually starting to create a little list right now of who we could send this property to, because we have a lack of green space property for development opportunities.
Is there any questions?
So that's green space development there now, right?
Means there's no building on it,
no building on it.
so you don't have to tear down or renovate.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Are there any concerns about traffic?
In what regards? For what's being carved out?
Yeah, so like we already have breweries about to add what,
Sure.
200 cars a day right there. And then whatever would go there would be more cars, and if all those factories are let out and go that way.
Sure. It's a great question. So hotels are low-density turnover type use categories. And from a traffic control perspective, banks, hotels, things like that, they don't generate a lot of traffic during peak periods. And really when you get into, these have direct, Drury specifically has direct curb cut action to US 42 and Industrial Road. Those are major roads. Even our road to the left there has a signalized intersection. So there was a traffic study that was submitted for this plan. There's no concerns there. There were some modifications done on the US 42 curb cuts. Have no concern with the hotel or the Roy Rogers that's getting ready to go in there. We've analyzed the traffic pretty hard with that, and this doesn't change the parking count or increase the building rooms or anything like that that would add more traffic. We always analyze when a new project is submitted, so say we find somebody that wants to build on this property, it's a case-by-case scenario. We'll look at what it is, you know that there's some end users, like a coffee shop with a high drive-through AM peak period type of traffic generation, they're gonna generate a lot more traffic. So we analyze those, we're very well in tune with that, and it is connected to a state road, so these certainly will require a traffic study if it's a high turnover use. May even be right in, right out traffic restriction, which is pretty common through this section of Industrial Road.
I mean, it is a 5-lane highway
It is.
that was built knowing what the surrounding areas would develop into, I would imagine.
Yeah, correct.
Any other discussions?
I'll just add that this, the zone that's in place here has been in place since 2008. So we were aware back then of what we were trying to do with the development in this area. So this falls right in line with that.
It is.
Carrie? All right, thank you, Mr. Hunt. Next is the mayor's report. Just to update you, the Art and Vendor Festival is scheduled for Saturday, July 20th from 9 to 3 at Bell Park at the Historic Fire Station on Main Street in Florence. Our parking will be available at Florence Christian Church and the Church of Scientology near the festival. There will be about 30 craft, art, and food vendors, food trucks, and the community photo contest winners' photographs will be on display in the firehouse. The Hills of Kentucky Dulcimers will perform from 12 to 2, and the Discover Zone will be collecting art and school supplies at the event. For more information, you can contact the Administration Department at 859-647-8177. The City of Florence will host a National Night Out on Thursday, August 1st from 5 to 7. The event will be held at the Florence Government Center. Florence Police Department, Public Services Department, Fire EMS Department will have equipment on display. There will be vendors and food will be provided to the attendees. It's a great opportunity to connect with city officials, city personnel, and council members. The 37th Annual Boone County Senior Picnic is scheduled for September 11th at 9 a.m. at the Boone County Fairgrounds. Tickets will be available for purchase for residents 55 and over beginning August 1st, 2024. You can purchase tickets at the Florence Finance Department or at the Florence Senior Center, as well as at the county, right? Our end of summer concert and car show will be held Saturday, August 3rd here at the Florence Government Center. The car show will be held from 12 to 5, and the concert will begin around 7:30, which will feature naked karate girls. There will be food trucks available for purchase and activities for kids. All are encouraged to come to the free concert and bring your lawn chair. We do have a need for an executive session. Under KRS 61.8101B, acquisition, sale of real property, where publicity would likely to affect the value of the property to be acquired for public use or to be sold by the city, and pursuant to KRS 61.8101C, litigation, proposed or pending against or behalf of the city, and KRS 61.8101F, appointment, discipline, or dismissal of personnel. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Nguyen?
Second.
Ms. Wingo? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We will return to this room to adjourn, but we do not anticipate any further business at this time taking place following the closed session. So thank you all for coming.